sheet here. We're going to discuss some auto coverages. And if you will go to the top, it says current auto coverages ABC company. And this is actually a real life client that we worked with last week. These are two cars. This is husband and wife, so there's two cars on here. And this is their current coverages. And I'm just going to kind of skim through real quick because I only had 7 minutes of it. They currently have bodily injury of 100, 300. How that comes into play is if you're involved in an accident and you are deemed at fault or you're liable, then this is how much your policy will pay for anybody else's injuries that they may sustain. The property damage was $100,000, so that's any damage that you do to another vehicle. You could hit a house, it could be trees, it could be a light post. So that's where that is. Collision and comprehensive, they both have $500 deductibles. I'm going to talk in reverse order. Comprehensive is one of 8 things. If you have a fire, theft, flood, vandalism, hail, tree falling on it, it's stolen, or you hit an animal. The deer hit you. You didn't ever hit the deer hit you. That is a comprehensive claim. Everything else is collision. And the big difference on the animal is 3 points versus 1 point. So if you hit an animal, if it's a dog, deer, I don't care what it is, when you get asked, the animal hit you. And make sure it's a comp claim, not a collision. It will save you money on the back end. Uninsured motorists here, I've highlighted this. They only have $25,000 of uninsured motorists with $50,000 per accident. When you leave this facility today, after this meeting, 24% of the drivers on that road, when you go to your work or you're going to your office, do not have insurance in Georgia. What they do is they get insurance, they get their tags, they get registered, and then they drop it. Georgia is one of the highest states, and I wish they would start really enforcing more. So there's a high probability if you're in an accident and you're not at fault, you're going to have to come to your own carrier, and that's where the uninsured motorist comes into play. We're going to talk about that. The limits are only $25.50. Towing of $50. Rental of only $20. Going down here, issues that I've identified that we need to look at. There's no medical payments on this policy, and I'll talk about that coming up on the back end here. Uninsured motorist is too low. Why do you insure Jane Doe, who you don't know out on the road, for $100,000, but you only insure yourself and your family for only $25,000? It makes no sense. Why would you not insure your family for the same amount that you do someone that you don't know? Towing coverage. If anyone's ever been towed, has anyone ever seen a bill more than $50? Everyone. So why have the coverage if you're at least not getting it right, so you're trying not to be out of pocket? And rental coverage. If you think put you in a $20 rental car, I don't think it's even a little zip car with $20. I mean, that's like a death wish if you had to go out there. So those are some items that need to be addressed. So what we did, we went back and I ran some comparisons. I ran an equal coverage analysis, and that's what the top one is, and we went through it. And their annual premium, they were on a 6-month premium previously with $933, and it comes out to be $1,870. I'm just going to round numbers. Going over to equal coverage, what they did is right at $1,600. We could save them money by doing the same thing, but that's not what we do here at Garrett. We actually sell coverage. We're going to ensure that if you're involved in something, that you're going to be made as whole as possible without the least amount of out-of-pocket expenses. So here's the recommended coverages that we ended up going with, and after my discussions with the client, they ended up going with. They went bodily injury coverage. We went from $100,000 to $300,000. We more than doubled it. We went from $250,000 to $500,000. And the property damage still at $100,000. So now if they're involved in an accident and they hurt somebody, there's $250,000 to take care of that instead of only $100,000. We left the collision and the comprehensive deductibles at the $500,000. Now they understand now how those coverages come into play. The uninsured motorists, we really looked at this. They didn't quite understand it, but after going through and showing them the charts and understanding it, we increased their uninsured motorists to the same limits of their liability. It cannot be higher than your liability, but it can be equal to. So we increased their uninsured motorists to $250,000. So now, if they're involved in an accident, either if they're not at fault and someone hits them and they have no insurance, you turn into a third party on your carrier. And you come, and this is where this coverage comes into place. And now you can collect up to $250,000 per person. The uninsured motorists, you'll see uninsured motorist property damage. Some people say, well, I've got $100,000. Why are you only offering me $25,000? And the reason is, if your vehicle is not worth $25,000, then why are you paying for anything more? Because because that's the only thing you can get. Because vehicles are actual cash value. So if you've got a $15,000 car, why you have coverage for $50,000? You can never get to it. So if you buy a new one, then we raise the coverages. We adjust it as that. So there's no need to pay for things that you don't need. We went to rental for $40 a day so they can get in a comparable vehicle, feel safe, they can drive their family around. That's even a minivan. Towing, we went to $100. Anything within about a 10-mile radius around here, $100 will cover that. And then we added medical payments of $5,000. And everybody says, why do I need medical payments? I have health insurance. Curtis offers health insurance. Why do I need it? Well, you have a deductible, correct? Most people have about a $5,000 deductible before health insurance even kicks in. So what happens if you're injured, you go to the doctor, you pay out the medical, now you get into your health insurance, but you can take those medical bills that you paid, submit them to your auto carrier, and get reimbursed. The idea is to make you as whole as possible without having to outlay anything. So that's kind of just real quickly what I do on a review, what we do on showing. And I've had one great question that's come up and it came up this week, is if I have a claim, do I need to file it? And the answer is no. Please call your agent first, because if you're not at fault, you do not want to have an incident on your record, even if they shut it down. If it's a claim filed and they shut it down with zero amount paid, it's still an active issue there. So let your agent help you and guide you through that to keep those things off your record. Any questions? I'd love to have coffees and things. I'm almost out of time.
Just a quick question. The $500,000 for the uninsured motorists, is that divided? You have 4 people. It's not $250 per person. It'd be
$250 maximum maximum for one person. $500,000 maximum for any.
So if there's 5, and there'd be $100,000.
Could be, or it could be situated depending on the level of